Hello, I'm Teacher Robin. Welcome to another live streaming class. Today our topic is phrasal verbs for studying. If you have a question during the class, you can write your question in the comments section and I will be checking your comments throughout the class. So let's get started with our topic today. We've talked about a lot of different kinds of phrasal verbs. There are hundreds of them in the English language. So what we've done is kind of separate them into different topics. So today we're going to focus specifically on phrasal verbs for studying. So this is a good way to memorize them, is to take these groups of 10 or so phrasal verbs. You can even make flashcards or write them down in your notes and try to review them as often as you can. And that's a good way to memorize them. So don't try to learn them all at once. It's impossible. So let's get started with our phrasal verbs for studying. Okay, our first one is to look up. So remember, a phrasal verb is composed of a verb and a preposition. So here we have look up, which means to find a particular piece of information by looking in a book, on a list, or online, etc. So for example, I need to look up the definition of that expression. I've never heard it before. Our next phrasal verb is to turn in or to hand in. So these are two phrasal verbs that have the same meaning, and they mean to submit something like a homework assignment. For example, I have to turn in my English homework every Monday morning. Or, yesterday I handed in the final draft of my paper. Okay, to catch on. This means to understand something, especially after a long time. So if you're having trouble understanding something and then you finally get it, you catch on. You're catching on. So after watching the video twice without subtitles, I'm finally starting to catch on. To work out is specifically something. So to work something out means to solve a problem by considering the facts. So this could be like a math problem or some sort of equation that you need to find the solution to, the answer to. For example, I can't work out this math problem. I need to ask for help. To brush up. This means to practice and improve your skills or knowledge of something. So this means that you probably studied it a long time ago, or you knew something about the topic, but if you're going to take an exam or if you're going to speak a language again, you probably need to brush up, which means that you review the skills again or the vocabulary, etc. For example, I took a class to brush up on my English skills before moving to London. So you wanted to refresh a little bit before making the move. Okay, to read through. To read all of a document, a book or a text, etc. in order to check or correct it. So we do this before we take an exam. We read through our notes, or before we submit or turn in a paper, an assignment. You want to read through it to make sure that everything is correct. So for example, I read through your essay and I found a few mistakes. So this means that you probably need to go back and check it again and rewrite it. Okay, to get ahead. This means to make progress to achieve something. Okay, so for example, I review vocabulary every night to get ahead. So especially if you want to advance really quickly in something, then you might study extra, do some extra assignments, extra exercises, which means that you'll get ahead and you'll be even more advanced maybe than the other people in your class. Okay? The opposite of this would be to fall behind. So if you fall behind, it means that you make less progress or you are less successful than everyone else. So for example, I fell behind in my class. Sorry, this should say fell with two L's, behind in my class because I was at home sick for a week. So if you fall behind, it means that you have more work to do to get ahead again. Okay? To slack off. I hope nobody does this, but it can happen to us from time to time. To Slack off means to do something with less effort or energy than before. So you can slack off at work, you can slack off in class. If there's something that you're supposed to be doing and you don't do it, you are slacking off. So for example, George began to slack off at the end of the term and failed the final exam. So if you slack off, you might not be as successful as you should be. Okay, I see that Ibrahim has a question about the difference between hand in and hand out. Does it mean the same thing? No, it doesn't. So to hand in something means to submit it. So you complete an assignment and then you hand it in to your teacher or online, for example. But to hand something out means that your teacher gives you the assignment. So my teacher handed out the exam, or my teacher handed out the questions that we had to do, okay? So someone hands out the assignment, you complete it, and then you hand it in. So it's like they go together, but they're not the same. Okay, so that was a great question. I hope you have more questions, so feel free to keep writing these questions in the comments. And I also want for you to practice what we've just learned. So you can write your answers in the comments. I want you to choose one of these phrasal verbs, or 2 or 3. If you're feeling adventurous, you can choose some and write an example. So to hand in, for example, to turn in, to slack off, any of these phrasal verbs that we've just learned, take one and write an example in the comments, and I'll be checking them in just a few minutes. As you are doing that, I want to tell you about our course. At ABBA, we have a complete course from beginners to business level. The course has 144 units, and each unit features a short film, a video class explaining the grammar, and exercises for you to practice all of your skills: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So it is a complete course. If you want to learn more about our course or subscribe, you can go to our website, abbaenglish.com, and there you can find more information. In addition to our course, we have many other resources that you can use that are really helpful and free. We have our blog, which is our ABBA journal. So there you can find articles about all kinds of different topics in English, grammar, culture, travel, really anything you could possibly think of, we have an article about it. So I highly encourage you to check out our blog. And we are also available on all of the social media networks like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. I encourage you to check out our Instagram as well, because we are posting new content every day, which is really interesting. So it's a great way to learn something new in a really short amount of time on your way to work, etc. Very flexible, and you can take it with you wherever you go. Okay, so let's see if anyone has a question. If not, keep writing. I know it's a lot of information, so feel free to continue writing your questions. If I don't answer your question live, then I will check your comments later on today and answer your questions. Thanks again to Ibrahim for the excellent question earlier. And let me tell you about next week's class. We're going to be talking about verbs, not phrasal verbs, but confusing verbs. So a lot of people have trouble with the verbs lend and borrow. When do I use those? What about say or tell? Which one do I use? So we're going to look at my top 10 of these confusing verbs, and I'm going to explain the difference and give you some examples for when you use one or the other. So tune in next week for that class. And I want to thank everyone who has joined us today. I hope this has been useful for you. I hope this has cleared up some of your doubts about phrasal verbs. And again, memorize a few at a time. You can do it. There are lots of phrasal verbs in the English language, but little by little, you can learn them all. So join us next week, and thanks again. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.